Gonna attempt a narration here of 2 short stories. Here we go. 3 a.m. walk. I'm fairly a small guy. I stand at around 5'5". I'm the most I've ever weighed was around 150 pounds. About 6 or 7 years ago, I didn't have my license despite being far old enough to drive, but a good buddy of mine wanted to hang out. He too did not have a way of transport, so we both decided to walk towards one another, meet in the middle. We would both be walking about 5 miles. It was 3 a.m. on a cold winter night, and I was wearing a black jacket with my hood up. And about 2 miles into the hike, along the main road, a car pulled into a parking spot of a home I was just passing just a few feet behind me. He wasn't entirely into the driveway, almost halfway hanging out into the road. I half expected it was just a kind of stranger wanting to give me a ride. But I wasn't about to take any rides from anybody. I kept pacing forward, ignored the car behind me, expecting him to roll down a window and shout at me. It didn't happen. The car just sat at the edge of the driveway running, but it completely dark inside to the point that I could only barely make out the figure of a large man. I don't typically get frightened by much, but something in the air made tense up. My heart kind of dropped in my stomach. I stopped, turned to look at the car, had a feeling that the person driving was watching me intently. Figuring the car was definitely facing me. I could see the reflection from the dash bouncing off his eyes. I stared back. I figured he was about to yell at me, but he just sat quietly in a strangely menacing way that I have only ever seen scenes in a movie play out. I kinda did a wave at the figure, letting him know I saw him and waited for some type of communication in return. He didn't budge, just stared intently. I returned to pacing away, slightly brisker. After just a few moments, I could hear the car slowly roll in reverse, so I turned to face it but kept pacing backwards. The car kept creeping slowly. I pulled down my hood, stood still again, waiting for him to pass me, but instead the man slowed to a stop beside me. Passenger side window rolled down. The man and I met eyes. No words exchanged at all, and before I could even let out a hello, the man grimaced, accelerated away at a decent pace, almost as if he was disappointed by the way and what he had seen. It doesn't seem like much from how it reads, but I'll never forget how tense the interaction was for me. I've never felt anything like it since. Number 2. The Haunted Supermarket. I work in a supermarket. Early shift, and part of my job is changing the shelf labels for the price changes each day. Just this Wednesday gone, I was putting new labels on a shelf of hand soap when, about 2 foot long on the shelf behind me, a bottle shot off and landed in the middle of the aisle. I looked along the aisle at my colleague and she shrugs and says, happens all the time. I've never directly witnessed anything else, but being one of the first on the shop floor each day, I'm now questioning all the items that I see sitting in the aisles. First thing, guessing. I can't blame untidy customers for them all. Let's add one more. This one's simply called Weird Guy. My sophomore year in college, I ran into this guy that was a year younger than me. Let's call him Mitch. Mitch and I were acquaintances that ran in the same circles. He was a nice guy, smart and quiet. At parties, he would fold these real cool 3D shapes in a corner instead of interacting. He would also just watch everybody. Anyway, I ran into him at a bus stop and I stopped to say hello. We had an awkward chat about our majors. Him physics, and me chemistry. And I asked if he had any contact with a mutual friend that went to the Army. He said yes, and I said, great. Could you pass him my number? He opened his wallet and pulled out a piece of paper. The only thing in there, it had my name, university address, and phone number.